The year was 2237. Humanity had finally achieved faster than light travel, and the dream of exploring the stars had become a reality. The United Earth government sent its first fleet beyond the solar system, hoping to make peaceful contact with alien life. For years, scientists had speculated about intelligent beings in the universe, and now humanity was about to find out the truth. The fleet, led by Captain James Carter, arrived in an uncharted star system. The moment was historic. The system had a habitable planet, and strange signals were coming from its surface. Excitement filled the ship as they prepared to make contact. The first alien civilization in human history was within reach. A transmission was sent, carefully crafted with universal symbols of peace. The crew waited. Minutes passed. Then a response came. A fleet of alien ships appeared on the scanners, approaching fast. The ships were sleek and dark, unlike anything humans had ever seen. Captain Carter ordered the crew to remain calm. Perhaps the aliens were just cautious. Maybe they would communicate soon. The fleet stayed still, waiting for the next move. Then, without warning, the alien ships opened fire. Deadly beams of energy struck the lead human ship, tearing through its hull like paper. Explosions ripped through the corridors, alarms blared, and screams filled the communication channels. Carter's ship barely managed to dodge, but two others in the fleet were not so lucky. They were destroyed in seconds. "This is an act of war," someone shouted. Carter's mind raced. Why were they being attacked? They had done nothing hostile. He gave the order to retreat. The fleet turned, activating their FTL drives. But the aliens pursued, firing relentlessly. One by one, the human ships fell. Carter's ship, the UES Pathfinder, was the only one left. With a desperate maneuver, they managed to escape into hyperspace, badly damaged but alive. When they returned to Earth, the news shocked the world. The first contact with aliens had not been peaceful. It had been a massacre. The United Earth government scrambled to respond. Who were these aliens? Why had they attacked without warning? Scientists analyzed the limited data collected during the battle. The alien ships had markings, symbols of a race known as the XL-FAR. A message arrived. It was from the XL-FAR. It was not a declaration of war. It was worse. The message was simple. Surrender now. Humanity is a threat to the galaxy. You will be destroyed. Panic spread across the planet. Why did the XL-FAR see humanity as a threat? Were they afraid of human potential? Or was there another reason? The government held emergency meetings. There was no choice. Humanity had to prepare for war. But could they win against an enemy so advanced? As the sun set over Earth, one thing was clear. This was only the beginning. Earth had never faced a crisis like this before. The attack on the First Fleet had sent shockwaves across the planet. Millions of people watched in horror as the recorded battle footage played on every screen. Fire and death in the cold darkness of space. The proud human ships, once symbols of hope, reduced to burning wreckage. And the message from the XL-FAR echoed in every mind. Surrender now. Humanity is a threat to the galaxy. You will be destroyed. Panic spread like wildfire. Governments scrambled to respond. The United Earth government, formed to unite humanity in space exploration, now had to prepare for war. The problem was, humanity was not ready. Earth's military was designed for small-scale conflicts, not interstellar war. There were only a handful of warships, most built for defense, not offense. Human technology was decades behind the XL-FAR. Shields, advanced weapons, faster ships. Humanity had none of it. Even the best scientists could not predict how long it would take to catch up. Across the planet, people argued. Some believed surrender was the only option. How could Earth fight against an enemy that had wiped out a fleet in minutes? Others, filled with rage and grief, demanded war. World leaders held emergency meetings. Generals studied battle reports, searching for weaknesses in the enemy. Scientists worked day and night, analyzing the limited data gathered from the surviving ship. But there was one truth no one wanted to admit. Humanity was weak. Then, the first attack came. A Xelfar warship entered the solar system without warning. It bypassed Mars, ignored the defenses on Luna, and headed straight for Earth. It was a message, a demonstration of power. The United Earth Navy sent everything they had: old warships, missile platforms, even experimental railguns. The battle lasted exactly 4 minutes. Every human ship was destroyed. The Xelfar warship didn't even fire at the planet. It simply turned and left, as if to say, "You are nothing to us." The world fell into despair. If the Xelfar wanted to, they could erase humanity in a day. So why hadn't they? The answer came weeks later. A second message arrived. Submit, and we will allow your species to serve. Resist, and you will be erased. Humanity was given a choice: become slaves or be destroyed. But something changed that day. Fear turned into something else. A fire burned in the hearts of people across the world. The Xelfar had underestimated humanity. They thought Earth would surrender. They were wrong. The United Earth government declared war. Factories worked without rest. Scientists raced to reverse engineer alien technology. A young scientist named Dr. Evelyn Carter made a breakthrough. Xelfar ships had energy shields, but those shields had limits. With the right frequency, they could be bypassed. New weapons were designed: plasma-based railguns, prototype energy shields, cybernetic pilots. Every nation came together for survival. For the first time in history, humanity stood as one. The first test of these new weapons came in the asteroid belt. A small Xelfar patrol ship entered the system, scouting for weakness. But this time, it did not find a defenseless species. It found warriors. A single human warship, the UES Vengeance, armed with experimental plasma weapons, ambushed the enemy. The battle was short, but this time, it was different. The Xelfar ship was destroyed. The first human victory. It was small, but it was enough. Enough to show the galaxy that humanity would not kneel. Enough to send a message back to the Xelfar. Humanity was at war, and it would fight until the last breath. The war had begun, but humanity was still far from victory. Destroying a single Xelfar patrol ship was a symbol of defiance, but it was not enough. The enemy still held every advantage: faster ships, stronger weapons, superior numbers. If Earth was going to survive, it needed to close the technological gap. Factories worked without rest. Engineers tore apart every piece of wreckage from the destroyed Xelfar ship, searching for secrets. Scientists pushed the limits of human understanding, racing against time to develop better weapons, better defenses. The brightest minds of Earth gathered in hidden research stations, working day and night on a single goal: level the playing field before it was too late. One name stood out among them: Dr. Evelyn Carter. She had been one of the first to study Xelfar technology, and now she was leading the charge in weapon development. She was brilliant, relentless, and completely obsessed with one idea: if the Xelfar could be hurt, they could be beaten. Her first breakthrough came unexpectedly. While studying fragments of the enemy's energy shields, she discovered something strange. Xelfar shields were not perfect. They operated on a specific frequency, designed to absorb and disperse energy attacks. But what if an attack matched the exact frequency of their shields? Instead of being absorbed, the energy would pass right through. It was a flaw, a small one, but it was a weakness that could be exploited. Dr. Carter wasted no time. She designed new weapons, plasma-based railguns that could adjust their energy output in real time, matching the enemy's shields and bypassing their defenses. The first tests were promising, but they needed to be tested in battle. Meanwhile, the military was changing. The old strategies of Earth would not work in space. Generals studied Xelfar battle formations, searching for patterns, weaknesses, anything that could give humanity an edge. The answer came from an unlikely source: Commander Adrian Vale, a former fighter pilot turned strategist. He had watched the first battles carefully. The XL-FAR fought with precision, almost like machines. They relied on overwhelming force, expecting their enemies to retreat in fear. But what if they faced an enemy that refused to play by their rules? Vale proposed a radical new tactic, hit-and-run warfare. Instead of engaging the enemy head-on, human fleets would strike from the shadows, using asteroid fields and nebulae as cover. They would appear, hit hard, and vanish before the enemy could respond. It was risky, but it was the only chance they had. The first real test of these new strategies came in the Orion sector. A XL-FAR fleet of 5 ships was detected moving toward a human outpost. Instead of retreating, the newly formed Terran strike force prepared an ambush. 3 human warships, equipped with Dr. Carter's experimental weapons, hid in the asteroid belt, waiting for the perfect moment. As the XL-FAR ships passed, the order was given. The first shots were fired. The plasma round struck the lead XL-FAR cruiser. Normally, their shields would have deflected the attack. But this time, something different happened. The energy passed through, burning straight into the enemy ship's hull. The alien vessel shuddered, then erupted into a massive explosion. For the first time in the war, a XL-FAR warship was destroyed in open battle. The remaining enemy ships responded immediately, firing in all directions, but the human ships were already moving. They weaved through the asteroid field, striking fast, never staying in one place for long. The second XL-FAR ship went down minutes later, then the third. The last 2 tried to retreat, but humanity had learned from their mistakes. They chased them down, refusing to let them escape. By the end of the battle, all 5 enemy ships were gone. It was a victory, a true victory, not just a lucky ambush, but proof that the XL-FAR could be beaten. When the news reached Earth, celebrations erupted across the planet. It was the hope humanity needed. People no longer spoke of surrender. They spoke of resistance, of war. But while the people cheered, the leaders of Earth knew the truth. This war was far from over. The XL-FAR had suffered their first loss, and they would not take it lightly. Humanity had won a battle, but the real war was about to begin. The battle in the Orion sector had changed everything. For the first time, humanity had proven it could fight back. The XL-FAR were not invincible. Their shields had weaknesses, their strategies had flaws, and most importantly, they bled. But the war was far from over. The victory sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Other alien races, watching from the shadows, now saw humanity in a new light. Before, they had assumed the war would be swift, that the XL-FAR would crush Earth within months. But now, they hesitated. Perhaps this new species was more dangerous than they had thought. For the XL-FAR, the loss was unacceptable. They had underestimated humanity once, and they would not make the same mistake again. The response was immediate. A fleet of 30 warships was assembled, more firepower than humanity had ever faced. Their target was clear. They were heading for Mars. Mars was Earth's most valuable colony. It housed shipyards, research stations, and supply lines that kept the war effort running. If Mars fell, humanity would lose its ability to build new ships, to develop new weapons. It would be a death sentence. The United Earth government knew this. The moment the XL-FAR fleet was detected, every available ship was ordered to defend the colony. But the numbers were grim. Earth could only send 17 warships, barely more than half of the enemy's fleet. And while humanity's technology had improved, it was still not enough to match the XL-FAR one-on-one. The leaders gathered in the war room, studying the incoming fleet. There was no doubt about the outcome of a direct battle. If they met the enemy in open space, they would be wiped out. They needed a different approach. Commander Adrian Vale had an idea. "We don't fight them head-on," he said. "We break them apart, piece by piece." The plan was bold. Instead of engaging the XL-FAR in one large battle, humanity would force them into smaller fights. They would use Mars itself as a weapon, drawing the enemy into the planet's harsh environment, using the dust storms, the canyons, the underground tunnels to their advantage. It was a desperate gamble, but it was their only chance. The battle began as expected. The XL-FAR fleet arrived, expecting an easy victory. They found Mars seemingly defenseless, with only a handful of human ships positioned in orbit. The rest were nowhere to be seen. Believing humanity had already begun retreating, the XL-FAR advanced. That was their first mistake. The moment they entered low orbit, the trap was sprung. Human ships, hidden behind the planet's moons and inside deep space shadows, launched a surprise attack. Plasma railguns fired, targeting enemy engines and shield generators. The first XL-FAR warship was crippled in seconds, left drifting in the void. The XL-FAR adjusted quickly. Their fleet spread out, returning fire with deadly precision. Explosions filled the Martian sky as human ships were torn apart. The battle was brutal, chaotic, and bloody. But humanity had prepared for this. As the XL-FAR pursued the human fleet, they were led into the planet's atmosphere. The thick dust storms of Mars interfered with their targeting systems. Their sensors, normally perfect, struggled to lock onto fast-moving human ships weaving through the chaos. And then came the second phase of the plan. Hidden on the Martian surface, massive railgun batteries powered up. These weapons, built into the canyons and underground bases, unleashed a devastating barrage. XL-FAR ships were struck from below, their shields struggling to adapt to the new angle of attack. One by one, they fell. But the XL-FAR were relentless. Even as their losses mounted, they pushed forward. They landed ground troops, hoping to take the colony by force. The fighting moved into the tunnels beneath Mars. Human soldiers, wearing advanced combat suits, engaged the XL-FAR in brutal close-quarters combat. Explosions shook the underground bases. Fires spread through the narrow corridors. It was a battle of attrition, neither side willing to back down. In the end, it was humanity's sheer determination that won the day. The last XL-FAR warship, its engines crippled, attempted to retreat. But there was nowhere left to run. A squadron of human fighters delivered the final blow, sending the ship crashing into the red sands below. The battle for Mars was over. It had cost humanity dearly. 11 of the 17 defending ships had been destroyed. Thousands of soldiers had died. But they had done the impossible. They had held the line. The XL-FAR had lost an entire fleet. For the first time in the war, humanity had done more than just survive. It had won. The battle for Mars had been a victory, but it came at a cost. Thousands of lives lost. Entire ships reduced to debris floating in orbit. The Martian colonies were still standing, but the scars of war ran deep. Yet, despite the losses, something had changed. Humanity had held its ground. The XL-FAR had thrown everything they had into the assault, expecting an easy conquest. Instead, they had been defeated. The message was clear. Humanity would not fall so easily. But there was no time to celebrate. Survivors were pulled from the wreckage. Engineers worked day and night to repair damaged ships. Scientists gathered whatever XL-FAR technology they could recover from the battlefield, hoping to learn from their enemy. And at the heart of it all, the United Earth government knew one thing for certain. The XL-FAR would return. The War Council convened in the underground command center on Mars, surrounded by flickering holographic displays of the latest battlefield reports. The XL-FAR fleet had been destroyed, but their empire stretched across the stars. More would come, stronger fleets, deadlier weapons, and this time, they would not underestimate humanity. Dr. Evelyn Carter, still covered in dust from the battlefield, slammed her hands on the table. We can't just wait for them to come back. If we keep fighting defensive battles, we'll lose. We have to take the fight to them. The room fell silent. Commander Adrian Vale nodded. She's right. We've spent this entire war reacting to their attacks. It's time we changed the rules. It's time we struck back. But how? The XL-FAR had conquered entire star systems. Their strongholds were heavily fortified, protected by fleets that dwarfed anything humanity could field. A direct assault was suicide. And then, a single intercepted transmission changed everything. The intelligence teams had been monitoring XL-FAR communications ever since the battle. Most of the messages were coded, impossible to decipher. But one signal stood out. It wasn't encrypted. It wasn't hidden. It was a distress call. Not from the XL-FAR, but from another species. The signal came from the Drakari, a long-forgotten race that had been conquered by the XL-FAR centuries ago. The message was simple. Help us. The XL-FAR are losing control. We can fight back. But we need your help. Hope flickered in the room. If the XL-FAR were dealing with rebellions, it meant they weren't as invincible as they appeared. Commander Vale leaned forward. If we can reach these Drakari, we might have a chance. An alliance. A way to fight back. The decision was made. A fleet would be assembled, not to defend, but to attack. A strike force, small and fast, would infiltrate the Drakari homeworld and make contact. If they could unite with the resistance, they could turn this war around. But it wouldn't be easy. The Drakari homeworld, Kelleris, was deep in enemy territory. It was surrounded by XL-FAR warships, watched constantly. If humanity's fleet was detected, it would be annihilated before it even reached the surface. The mission would have to be precise, silent, deadly. A single stealth ship, the UES Phantom, was chosen for the operation. It was the most advanced ship humanity had, equipped with experimental cloaking technology designed to evade XL-FAR sensors. On board would be a team of the best humanity had to offer, elite soldiers, engineers, and diplomats, all tasked with a single goal: reach the Drakari and light the fire of rebellion. As the Phantom prepared for launch, whispers spread across the fleet. The war was no longer about survival. It was about something greater. If the Drakari could rise up, if humanity could fight alongside them, then perhaps this wasn't just a war for Earth. Perhaps this was the beginning of something bigger. A war not just for survival, but for freedom. For the first time, humanity was not just defending. It was striking back. The UES Phantom slipped through the void of space, its engines running cold, its hull coated in experimental stealth plating that bent light and radiation away. To any XL-FAR sensors, it was nothing more than a shadow. Inside, the crew remained silent, each one focused on their role. The mission was the most dangerous humanity had ever attempted, an infiltration deep into enemy space, straight into the heart of XL-FAR-controlled territory. If they were caught, there would be no reinforcements, no rescue. Commander Adrian Vale stood at the bridge, watching the holographic map of their destination. Kelleris, the homeworld of the Drakari. For centuries, the Drakari had lived under XL-FAR rule, their culture crushed, their people enslaved. But now, something had changed. The intercepted message spoke of resistance, a rebellion waiting to rise. If humanity could reach them, if they could provide weapons, strategies, and hope, then this war could shift. Vale turned to his crew. This is it. We make contact, or we die trying. The Phantom approached Kelleris, its cloaking technology barely holding as it slipped past XL-FAR patrols. Below, the planet stretched out, vast deserts, towering citadels, and beneath them, underground cities where the last remnants of Drakari freedom still flickered. Their landing site was an abandoned XL-FAR outpost, long since buried under the sands. As the ship touched down, the team moved quickly, fanning out with weapons at the ready. Dr. Evelyn Carter activated her scanner, searching for any sign of life. "We're not alone," she whispered. "Something's moving underground." Then the sand shifted. Figures emerged from hidden tunnels, reptilian in form, their scaled bodies covered in battle scars. Their eyes glowed in the dim light, weapons clutched in clawed hands. The Drakari. For a tense moment, no one spoke. Then one of the Drakari stepped forward, his voice a low growl. "You are the humans." Vale nodded. "We received your signal. We're here to help." The Drakari warrior studied them carefully, then gave a slow nod. "Then come. The war is about to begin." They were led into the tunnels, deep beneath the sands. The underground city of the Drakari was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. Massive caverns filled with glowing crystals, carved stone fortresses, and entire armories of stolen Sci-Fi weapons. The resistance was real, and it was ready. But there was a problem. "The Sci-Fi are preparing to wipe us out," the Drakari leader explained. "They suspect we are rising, and they will not allow it. In 3 days, they will deploy the extermination fleet. If that happens, we will be gone before we can even fight." A chill ran through the room. Humanity had seen what an extermination fleet could do. Entire planets reduced to ashes. Billions slaughtered in hours. Vale clenched his fists. "Then we don't wait. We strike first." It was madness. The Drakari were outnumbered, outgunned. Even with humanity's help, they could not fight a full-scale war. But they didn't have to. They only needed one victory. Dr. Carter studied the Sci-Fi defenses and spotted their weakness. The enemy's main command center was an orbital fortress, controlling every military operation on the planet. If they could disable it, they could throw the entire invasion force into chaos. A plan formed. The Phantom would infiltrate the station, planting explosives in its reactor core. At the same time, the Drakari resistance would launch an uprising, taking down key Sci-Fi strongholds on the surface. If it worked, the Sci-Fi forces would crumble before they could react. If it failed, everyone would die. There was no turning back. As the team prepared for the assault, Vale looked at his soldiers, then at the Drakari warriors standing beside them. "Tomorrow," he said, "we stop running. Tomorrow, we make the Sci-Fi afraid." The war for Caloris had begun. The time for planning was over. The war for Caloris had begun. The UES Phantom hovered silently in low orbit, hidden in the planet's electromagnetic storms. Below, the Drakari resistance was preparing for its greatest battle. Weapons were handed out. Explosives were placed in key locations. Fighters sharpened their blades, knowing that by dawn, they would either be free or dead. Commander Adrian Vale stood in the Phantom's war room, staring at the holographic display of their target. The Sci-Fi Command Fortress. It was a massive orbital station, a floating monolith of steel and death, controlling every Sci-Fi force on the planet. If they could destroy it, the enemy fleet would be thrown into chaos, and the Drakari would have a fighting chance. Dr. Evelyn Carter tightened her gloves. "Once we breach the station, we won't have much time. The reactor core is deep inside, protected by multiple layers of security. If we don't move fast, we'll be trapped." Vale nodded. "Then we move fast." The strike team was ready. A mix of human soldiers and elite Drakari warriors, each one armed with the best weapons humanity and the resistance had to offer. They would infiltrate the station, plant explosives in the reactor, and escape before it detonated. Meanwhile, on the surface, the Drakari rebellion would begin. At the first explosion, hidden resistance cells across the planet would rise, striking Sci-Fi fortresses, sabotaging supply lines, and turning Caloris into a battlefield. This was their one shot. As the Phantom approached the station, the cloaking system barely holding, Vale gripped his rifle. "Let's show the Sci-Fi what humans and Drakari can do together." The infiltration began. The Phantom's airlock hissed open, and the strike team launched into the void, magnetic boots clamping onto the station's outer hull. They moved quickly, cutting through a maintenance hatch and slipping inside. The corridors were dark, filled with the hum of alien machinery. For a moment, all was silent. Then, the first Sci-Fi patrol appeared. The humans and Drakari moved as one. Silenced weapons fired, dropping the guards before they could raise the alarm. The team pressed forward, navigating through tight corridors, dodging security drones, and hacking into locked doors. Then, they reached the reactor chamber. The core was massive, glowing with unstable energy. The explosives were set, timers activated. 5 minutes until detonation. And that's when the alarms blared. The XL-FAR had found them. Doors slammed shut. Automated turrets activated. Elite XL-FAR warriors stormed the chamber, plasma weapons lighting up the darkness. The battle was instant and brutal. Vale fired his rifle, taking down 2 XL-FAR before ducking behind cover. A Drakari warrior leaped through the air, his blade slicing through an enemy's armor. Explosions rocked the station as gunfire, and screams filled the air. On the surface of Calaris, the rebellion had begun. The first explosion shattered the sky, and across the planet, the Drakari resistance rose as one. XL-FAR outposts erupted in flames. Supply convoys were ambushed. Entire garrisons were overwhelmed as the enslaved population fought back. The XL-FAR, unprepared for a full-scale rebellion, were thrown into chaos. Back in orbit, the station's core was moments away from critical failure. Vale's communicator crackled. "Commander, we have to go. Now." The team sprinted through the collapsing station, dodging falling debris and enemy fire. The Phantom was waiting, hovering just outside the breach. One by one, the strike team leaped into the airlock as the final countdown began. 3, 2, 1. The station detonated. A fireball consumed the sky as shockwaves rippled through space. The XL-FAR fleet, now leaderless and in disarray, struggled to regroup. On the ground, the resistance took full advantage, pushing forward, reclaiming their cities, their home, their freedom. The battle for Calaris was over. The Drakari had won. As the Phantom soared through space, Vale watched the burning remains of the XL-FAR station. The war wasn't over, not yet. The XL-FAR Empire still ruled over dozens of planets, still commanded fleets powerful enough to crush entire civilizations. But this was the first crack in their empire. Humanity and the Drakari had done the impossible. They had turned the tide. For the first time in history, the XL-FAR were the ones retreating. The Terran Empire was no longer just an idea. It was being forged in fire.